So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today I'm joined by Michael Bala, and he plays guitar for two bands that are releasing a split, Necronomican EX Mortis and Bloodfest Ritual. And this EP is called You Got Red on You, and it's coming out February 21st, 2025, just missing the mark for Valentine's Day. It's you were like waiting for the punchline. Yeah. So, Michael, how are you today?
Well, frankly, I'm a little tired. My neighbor downstairs snores a lot, so I haven't gotten more than 3 or 4 hours of sleep in the past week.
So, you know what you should do? So he snores that loud that you
Oh,
can
yeah.
hear him.
Yes.
Maybe invest in some noise canceling headphones.
Yeah, I just park it in the living room and sleep on the couch,
Oh my
which
God.
is fine for like a night or two, but it's getting difficult to turn my head to the left, so I need to figure something else out.
You should go to your neighbor like, hey, man, you're keeping me awake. Or you could just blast your music when he's sleeping.
Well, that's kind of the thing is, I'm one of those people that I'd happily go to bed at noon and sleep until 6 at night and then get up and
Okay.
start my day. So honestly, I'd rather be, I don't like the sun. I,
Okay.
I don't like the mid-afternoon, so I'd happily just sleep through that and then be up all night.
Well, then it works for you. That's a good deal. So you play guitar for both bands, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So Blood Feast came first. When I did live in LA, we we formed Blood Feast. It was myself and a guitar student at the time that I had,
Hmm.
who was slightly older than me, and we got on really well, had a similar sense of humor, and he knew that I had a lot of songs written. So he said, "Hey, if you're looking for guitar players, I'll do it." I said, Great, sure. We found a couple other members. We put out one EP on July 24th, 2020. And at the time, things were going well, but we had some problems with the other members. We couldn't keep a bass player. I think we went through
Okay.
5 bass players in 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
And our drummer at the time also had some personal issues that we'll just say impacted his performance a bit. And then he kind of bowed out before we started the promotional cycle for that release. About a year later, after COVID had been firmly established and kept us all inside for about a year, we ended up recording more songs. But the trouble is, we could not decide on how to release them. Were we going to try and contact a small label? Were we going to just do it independently? Who was going to pay for the art? Things like that. And unfortunately, the songs never came out. And they sat on my hard drive for years. Um, I ended up moving back to Chicago and starting the band Necronomicon EX Mortis with a lot of buds from back in the Berkeley days. And after having the Blood Feast song sit on my computer for, I think, 3 years, I just said, it's time we actually release these. So
Okay.
I had the idea to do a split. We have Necronomicon Ex Mortis, which we've got tons of songs that are already recorded, and we've got these old Blood Feast songs. Why not just put them both out at the same time? See what happens.
Yeah. So Bloodfist is it still active or is it a non-active band and you're more with Necronomicon Ex Mortis?
Well, that's okay. So, if you asked me that 3 months ago, I would have said Blood Feast is not active. But having finally been able to drop that first single, Soul Annihilation, back in December, the other members who I haven't talked to in a while reached out and said, "Hey, man, it's great that these tunes are actually seeing the light of day." We got to talking, and I don't want to confirm that there absolutely will be another release, but I am happy to say we've talked about it.
Okay.
We've kind of made rough plans with, I'll say, cautious optimism and expectations very well managed. But it's possible that Blood Feast might do something again in 2025. And frankly, I would love to. Making records is my favorite thing, more so than tour, more so than anything else. I just really love the idea of writing a piece of music, practicing it for months on end, and then finally getting to sit on the couch in the studio and hear it come back to me. Um, so Blood Feast, maybe. We hope
Maybe.
so. Necronomicon EX Mortis is very much my baby, my playground, I guess you could call it, because I think of Necronomicon EX Mortis as like the baseline is death metal, but sometimes that death metal is going to be really chaotic and aggressive and atonal, and other times it's going to be more melodic, maybe a little bit more ambient. Maybe it's going to be mid-tempo, throw some bolt thrower stuff in there. The baseline will always be death metal, but we're going to try as many different flavors of death metal as we possibly can. That's always been the goal of that band, to just basically encompass the entire genre. I like to call it a love letter to death metal and all of its various forms.
Yeah, no, and it has a lot of that. So, how would you say that Necronomicon Ex Mortis sound differs from the other band?
Well, the other band, I with Bloodfeast, the songs were written. First of all, the single you heard was actually written by the other guitar player at the time, Hunter.
Okay.
He wrote the majority of that one, and the way it worked with us was he would write the riffs and then I would arrange them, right? I'd help put them in order or add melodies, counter melodies. Maybe our solo should go here or the song structure should look like this. So that's how the writing process ended up for those songs.
Mhm.
And his influences were much more of the straight ahead 90s death metal. He was really into bands like Disincarnate, or bands that are modern but sounded like they're from the 90s, because he loved Tomb Mold, he loved Blood Incantation, and those are great bands.
Oh yeah.
Uh, he loved Fetid, which is a really cool band. I think they're a three-piece too. So the inspiration for those songs came from a more kind of sloppy, chaotic feeling. Whereas with the Necronomicon stuff, there are times where I'm overtly making technical music because the goal is to write something technical and crazy. And then there are times when I deliberately try and do something that's more mid-tempo and bolt thrower like.
Hmm.
And then there are times when I want to do something that actually sounds more 90s straight ahead chaotic kind of a thing. I think there's an attempt at diversifying the Necronomicon Ex Mortis sound. Again, all within death metal, but trying to hit a lot of the subgenres just for the fun of doing it. Whereas Blood Feast is a bit more focused on that very 90s sound. And I'd also like to point out that the songs for Blood Feast, they're written in a sort of stream of consciousness style. One riff
Okay.
flows to the next, flows to the next, flows to the next. And it's not based on traditional chord progressions. It's not based on key changes. Most of the harmonies are in fourths or fifths, so it's all very parallel sounding. But the song develops that way with a sense of logic that pushes it through, more so on just listening and figuring it out rather than relying on preconceived melodic patterns, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Also, the longest song is from Bloodfeast. You know, the Decaying Humanity, which is
Oh, yeah.
almost a 10-minute track.
Yes.
Like nine. So yeah, that was like a longer track and moody, and it changes like what you were just explaining. So you, because I'm looking, you do songwriting in Necromonicon. You're doing the songwriting and the lyrics, but in Bloodfist Ritual, you did not do the song like the lyrics for that band.
No, I didn't do the lyrics for that one.
Okay.
My lyrical style differed very heavily from Hunter Gurney, who was the guy
Hmm.
who wrote the lyrics for the Blood Feast stuff. Hunter wanted to he really wanted to capture this feeling of, like with Decaying Humanity, being lost in space, or he wanted to convey this idea of something bigger than humanity. that
Okay. Mhm.
perhaps used humanity for some reason, you know. He liked the idea of thinking about the universe and how math and patterns and it all fit together. That was just very much what he was into, that cosmic sort of feel. Um, Lyrically, I'm much more straightforward. I just like monster movies. Yeah,
Yeah, I could tell, like you could tell the difference because yeah, those ones sounded like what you said, like different genres, but then you have the songs that you wrote, like Unspeakable Swamp Creature, which is one of the singles I think that's
yeah.
released. And was that inspired? I thought of Swamp Thing.
I've never read an issue of Swamp Thing before.
No, I just
Probably
remember
should.
that crappy, I think it was 80s movie of Swamp Thing.
I, I I don't think I've seen that movie. I've seen Humanoids from the Deep.
That's okay. Michael,
I've,
you will survive. You don't need to see
oh, I
it.
love 80s crap fest, believe me. And so many of the movies I watch are 80s movies are I watched The Breakfast Club last night for the 100th time because that movie just is, you know, is my comfort food. But Unspeakable Swamp Creature, it's a sequel. Because on our second EP, Silver Bullet, we had a song called The Swamp. And I don't know why, but it ended up being the favorite track of Manuel, the other guitar player in
Mhm.
Necronomicon, and Yusuf, the bass player in Necronomicon. They just ended up really liking that song. So I thought it would be fun to continue the story a little bit and build something that was based off of the swamp. It had a couple of very clear references. I mean, a few riffs repeat. The ending riff does. There's our favorite riff in the song that comes back as the bridge. There's another giant clean section. That song is very much inspired by the band Cemetery, who I want to say they're either Swedish or Finnish. I believe Swedish. Um,
Someone will correct in the
yeah,
comments.
yeah, of course they will. They're some flavor of Scandinavian. But yeah, that song is a sequel to The Swamp, and you know, without making too many promises, we want to do one more, just for the sake of tying it all together and making a trilogy of songs about
Return of the
swamp
Swamp Man.
creatures. Yeah, yeah, just because it's fun.
So
There's no
I think you should see that Swamp Thing movie for inspiration.
I actually when it comes time to write lyrics, I usually throw on a movie. Just because it helps me get in the mood to write monster movie nonsense if I'm actually watching a monster movie. On our last EP, we had a song called Mother of Death, and I wrote that song while watching The Conjuring 3. And the song is, I mean, there's not really a grand narrative or anything like that, but it ended up being about a cult leader. The
Mm.
song itself, though, is relative. It's pretty meaningless because it's just spooky words written down that form somewhat of a cohesive idea. But it's just nonsense that I threw on because I was watching The Conjuring 3. That's it. And a
I
lot
don't
of songs
remember
end up being that.
which one that was. I've seen them, but I can't remember which one was the part three. I remember I think the first one was about those movies that there's always so funny because you get this like family and they look at this house that look creepy as fuck. It's like, yes, we should totally raise our songs here. And you're like, no.
I kind of get it. I love I my dream is to live in the very far north of New England in a Victorian mansion that looks creepy. I'd love to live in a small town that's hiding a horrifying secret on the coast of Maine. Like that to me is if I can get there, I know I've done life correctly. So I kind of get it.
So you want to be in a Robert Egger movie.
Yeah, I actually I just saw The Lighthouse for the first time, and that's supposed to take place off the coast of Maine, and it made me want to talk like a wiki for about a week. That was fun.
Yeah, I saw Nosferatu in the movie theater, but I hadn't seen any of his movies, so I didn't know what to expect. But then I saw The Lighthouse, and he's got like a tone, like all his movies like look alike in like. Did you watch Nosferatu, the last one?
Yeah, I saw it the day it came out. I saw the 10 p.m.
YouTube? No,
screening.
I saw the day after.
Oh, so I live here in Chicago, and I went to the 10 p.m. screening at the Music Box over on Southport, and it's a very, very old theater. It's almost 100 years old, and seeing Nosferatu in a fully packed theater on Christmas was kind of amazing. I loved that movie. I really did. It ended up being my second favorite horror movie of the year,
Yeah.
just in front of The Substance and just behind Terrifier 3.
I haven't seen The Substance. I want to watch that one.
It's good.
The
It's
one
very
I saw and I thought it was total crap was Long Legs. I thought
Yeah,
it was a bad imitation of Silence of the Lambs.
I
Like
get it.
Silence of the Lambs meet the what's the movie about that doll that kills people? Annabelle. Like you put Silence of the Lambs and Annabelle, and then you have Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage, and you got Long Legs.
Longlegs, I'm not a big Oz Perkins fan. I've seen a couple of his movies. I think the first one I saw was called The Black Coat's Daughter or something like that. Emma Roberts is in it. His movies to me are just too slow, and
Supremely
too
slow.
there's just it's too much atmosphere and not enough things actually happening. And I'm fine with atmosphere. I mean, a great movie that's modern that has phenomenal atmosphere, but things actually happen is called It Follows. Also, actually, oddly enough, with Micah Monroe in it, that movie's great. That movie's a lot of fun, and it's pretty freaky too. So, again, I have nothing against atmosphere in movies, but Oz Perkins just doesn't really do it for me. So I get it. I wasn't a big Longlegs fan either.
Yeah. So in Nosferatu, were you a fan of the mustache?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
the
like,
thing
and
is,
people are like complaining, and that's what Vlad the Impaler looked like.
exactly. Like he was very much, at least to me, I saw that and I go, oh, they made him look like Vlad Tepes. Okay.
Yeah, the
So
voice was so funny to me, like you will remain, so you will be well rested.
apparently Bill Skarsgård worked with an opera
A
singer
vocal
or
coach or
someone.
something.
Yeah, just because he actually dropped his voice down that low. And I think they, probably tossed a bunch of reverb on it, but generally speaking, I don't think there was any pitch correction going on. That was just him, and that's insanely impressive.
Yes, I just did a very bad impersonation of the voice, but yeah. So you like horror a lot. Would you ever do like a album or EP that's like a concept of one like monster in particular?
We thought of doing that with a few songs based off of Hellraiser. So Hellraiser, the first three I really love, and then the newest one that came out is also really, really good. So we thought of doing a three-song EP where it's essentially would be one song but chopped up into three movements. And the idea was something like The Order of the Gash, The Lament Configuration, Hellbound. And that would all be based on Hellraiser because, Pinhead or lead Cenobite or whatever you want to call him, his order is the Order of the Gash. The Lament Configuration is the box, and then
Mhm.
Hellbound is the subtitle for Hellraiser 2. And on every Necronomicon release, the last song is always directly named after a horror movie. So it'd be a way to do that, have an EP or a release that's entirely about one monster or one idea, and still have the last song be named after a horror movie.
Yeah, that's inventive, like maybe for a future release. So let me show the artwork of the split that's coming out, so people we can talk about the artwork, which is pretty cool. There's London, so it reminds me of 27 days later.
Okay. So, uh, for any fans of British comedy, they're going to get where this comes from immediately. There was a movie, geez, I think it's 20 years old now, or at least close to it, called Shaun of the Dead.
I remember that movie. Yeah,
I love that movie. So, I big fan of British comedy. I grew up watching
very
BBC.
dry but good. Yeah.
Yes, very, very dry. I grew up with it, and I really, really went nuts in college watching it. And I found out my wife had never seen Shaun of the Dead. So you're gonna love this. We sat down to watch it. I had a few too many adult beverages, and halfway through the movie, that joke keeps coming back where they tell Shaun, "You've got red on you." It started with the pocket protector, and then he was covered in blood. And I thought, that's kind of an awesome name for a release. So immediately, while being slightly intoxicated, I emailed our artist and said, "Can you make me a piece of art that depicts London covered in zombies?" And he says, "Why London specifically?" I was like, "Just trust me. I promise this is going to work." And this is what he came up with.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Well, thank you.
And
It's the zombies thing. It's zombie movies for me have always been either really hit or really miss. But I love Shaun of the Dead, and that movie when I saw it for the first time, I was under 10 years old, and it was terrifying. I know it's supposed to be funny, but still, it just was like, oh my God, this is absolutely horrifying. And looking at this cover, and remembering back to when I thought that movie was legitimately scary, it just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up a little bit. It also makes me laugh because, again, anyone who's a big fan of British comedy, they're going to get this pretty much immediately.
yeah, when you're young, I think pretty much a lot of things you find scarier that if you watch them now, you're like, yeah, it's not scary at all. Uh, but yeah, it's a cool EP artwork, which obviously depicts, with the zombie thing. I think I like more movies sometimes than, well, except World War C, which sucked ass.
I saw it in
Yeah,
theaters with a couple of buds. It's fine. It was not
I
good,
read the book.
but I had fun with my friends seeing the movie,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I read the book, and the only thing in common is that it's named the same, but it's totally different. The book is totally different. Uh, but it had Brad Pitt, and they invite him because he was Brad Pitt.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. But yeah, and the shows like The Walking Dead to me was boring. I did like The Last of Us because it gave it like a different approach. Like they were different zombies, and plus I played the video game.
The game was awesome. I haven't played the second one, and I haven't sat down to watch the show yet either. As for The Walking Dead, um, it was fine. I watched it religiously when it came out with my dad. That was the thing we did every, I want to say Tuesday. I don't remember, but he'd always
Yeah.
make popcorn. We'd sit down to watch it, and it was a great time. Um, but man, after season three, I just remember it going downhill real fast. And then I tried to get back into it once Negan came around, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, it can get old. So you're releasing this Pleat EP in February 21st. So what are the plans for this, like for the band? Do you want to play this stuff live? Like what's coming next for the bands?
Well, merch, frankly. So, okay, for Blood Feast, when the songs finally come out, I'm going to get the guys together and we're going to have a pretty serious conversation about if we're going to do something else. Because we put out the first EP in 2020, July 24th, 2020. Um, I remember it because my best friend, it's its birthday, so that's how I remember.
Okay.
Um, but I'd like to do something. I cannot be doing what I do with Necronomicon again, which is essentially writing most of the tunes, writing the
Mhm.
lyrics, and then pulling everyone together. So if it's a group effort, I think we can make it. If they're
Okay.
not all that interested, maybe then I look for someone else. Maybe it's just time to put it to bed. I don't know. The future's up in the air. As I said earlier, I am approaching this with cautious optimism. I would love to do something again, maybe. For
Okay.
Necronomicon, we're finally gonna have merch. So right now, if you checked out our Bandcamp page or anything like that, we do have patches and posters for sale, which the posters are relatively inexpensive to make, and patches were made by my mother-in-law. Thank you, Robin.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, yeah, and she did a great job because she's trying to start an embroidery business. So
Oh.
They are professional quality. But that being said, we ordered shirts back in September. Unfortunately, there was an error. Maybe it was in the printing, maybe it was in the communication. I'm not totally sure, but I winded up with a bunch of shirts I couldn't actually sell. That's yeah,
That
not great. I
sucks.
didn't
Yeah.
want to release our first shirt as something that's like, hey guys, there was an error, so I'm just going to sell these at cost. No, that would totally suck. So the plan is on Saturday, this upcoming Saturday, I'm going to California and I'm recording a single, just one tune with the guys. And we are going to drop that single, hopefully sometime either in late March or early April. And with that single will come some t-shirts and physical copies of the EPs so far. CD for sure, possibly cassette as well. And I am toying with the idea of making a vinyl. I don't know if all of these things are going to be available immediately,
Takes
just
time.
because
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of
And
cost up.
money.
But there will definitely be the t-shirts and the CDs will be priority. Cassettes after that, maybe a limited vinyl. We've had a lot of people ask either directly on the band page or send messages to the band going, "Hey guys, where's your merch? I'd love to buy something." First of all, to anyone, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry that it has taken this long, but it will finally be available. Um, that's what's coming next for Necronomicon. And then after that, we've got more music that's going to come out. We're going to try and do some touring in the summer. The plan with Necronomicon, because we don't all live in the same area, has been relentlessly release music and make that music as high quality as we possibly can. Again, because we can't get in the same room and jam all the time. So we're trying to push the social media as far as it can go, release as much quality music as possible, do some light touring around the East Coast and the Midwest specifically, just because most of the guys live on the East Coast and it's very easy to tour the Midwest because things are relatively quick in terms of the drive. And also,
Mhm.
if you're centered around Chicago, that just makes things easier for me because I've got most of the gear here. Anyway, yeah, the plan has always been just relentlessly release music. I mean, with this split coming out on the 21st, that'll be five releases
Yeah.
in under
I
2 years.
I read 5 releases. That's in 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. And we've got at least two more after the single with the merch for this year. So, you know, that the train has left the station and it does not plan on stopping.
Good. Yeah. And I think right now, it's like the two bands, like some EPs is more like a way to go, like just get a few songs out there instead of like waiting for a long album. So it's a good way to keep your, first of all, interest in the people and start building up.
That's exactly what it is. We are currently independent. Now, we're looking for a label. I personally think that a label is very possible, probably closer to the end of the year after we've got a couple more independent releases and merch sales under our belt. Um, but with the whole EP thing, I treat them very much as experiments
Mhm.
because it's easy to put out 15 to 20 minutes of music and center the idea around a certain style or a certain theme. That's more difficult to do on a 45-minute album. And if it doesn't work, then people have to endure it for longer. So
That is
the
true.
EP is nice because we constantly have something to promote. You know, if it's a four-song EP, drop one single, drop two single, then the whole thing. There's 3 or 4 months of promotion right there. Take a month off, do it again. It works. And
Yeah.
I think for independent bands, it ends up being the way to go because it takes some of the cost off of them. It takes some of the pressure for sure, but it just is a little bit easier of a workload for people to manage. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to do an album, a full proper album. I have full proper albums written that we are talking about recording. Um, so the EP thing is not going to last forever, but we have a few more small releases for the rest of 2025 just to sort of keep hammering the hell out of people, just keep giving them more cool tunes.
I think it sounds like a solid plan and a great way, obviously, to build the fan base and get the interest in the band, so you can do later on an album. So yeah, Michael, I want to thank you for taking some time today to chat with me about obviously DCP, both bands and music. So before I let you go, anything that you like to say to the people before we go?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, to anyone who has listened to the band, taken time to check out a single, reached out and said something nice, thank you all very much. I mean, it's just it's tough out there for bands these days, and I'm certainly not going to turn this into a pity party by any means. I just want to say that the smaller bands really do notice the support and really appreciate it. So thank you to anybody who has listened or picked up a patch or a poster or reached out with a kind word. It is extremely appreciated. And also, thank you very much for having me. I had a great time. It's been really nice talking.
No, no, I had a great time too talking about music and monster stuff. So yeah, Couchers, the EP is going to be out February 21st. I'll put the link for people who want to know more about the band. It's called You Got Red on You, Necronomican EX Mortis plus Bloodfest Ritual. So that'll be out in almost a month. So well, almost a month because I don't know about you, but I sometimes January feels like a whole fucking year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially here, we're getting slammed with snow. So,
it's
yeah.
always like it's always like the longest month. And even though I live in the Caribbean, so it's nice here, but it's still like the slowest month. Plus, people get all excited when the 1 year ends, and then 2025 begins, and we get fires in California, like viruses somewhere else. You're like, we should stop. Let's cancel New Year's. Everyone, so just stay quiet and be like, no, let's not celebrate. So nothing happens bad in the other year. So, but yeah, it's been great chatting with you. Eh, like any good monster movie that's not well known that you would recommend to see?
From Beyond. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, From Beyond, I want to say it came out in '86. It stars Jeffrey Combs and my personal favorite scream queen, Barbara Crampton. She's in her 60s now, and man, she has still got it. Uh, I love that movie. It's based on a Lovecraft short story, but the short story is pretty thin. There's not a whole lot going on. I think it's only 7 or 8 pages, and they take the ideas in that short story and just run with it. And I think it's a totally underappreciated horror movie from the 80s. I mean, again, it's Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs. Reanimator just turned 40 this year, and
Wow.
that's, in my opinion, the second greatest horror movie of the 80s. So it's just you got to if the dream team is in it, you got to see it. And I'm going to take this one step further. Castle Freak, which I believe is a Full Moon production, also Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs. Great movie, loosely based off of Lovecraft, I think too. I think that one's loosely based off of The Outsider. Maybe it's not called The Outsider. I don't remember, but again, it's taken off of a short story that doesn't have a whole lot going on in it, and they just totally run with it. So, yeah, Castle Freak and From Beyond. If you only have time to watch one, definitely do From Beyond first. But anything with Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs is top tier.
Awesome. I have to squeeze it in when my kids are sleeping and I don't have to watch Paw Patrol.
Yeah, this is a bit different.
Yes. So yeah, Michael, thank you for joining me today virtually from Chicago to my couch here in Puerto Rico. So until next time, couchers, This is Hector, the Shield Dude on a Couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.